Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Suzanne Hume, and I have a nonprofit that I started because of an environmental crisis. So I started Clean Earth for Kids, and through our important work that we're doing, we're trying to bring change. Today, we have many wonderful speakers to talk about racial justice, social justice, climate justice, and environmental justice. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'd like to introduce Youth Board member Leanna Cortez.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leanna Cortez. I'm a youth board member here at Clean for Kids, as well as the team lead for Team 1 for climate action plans, renewable energy, and sustainability. Here are 6 teams. So as I mentioned before, Team 1 is for climate action plans, renewable energy, and sustainability. Team 2 is for trees and protecting plants and wildlife in our parks. Team 3 is for clean air and no idling. Team 4 is water is life and protecting our water sources. Team 5 deals with stopping pesticides and toxic chemicals and getting those out of our parks and so forth. And Team 6 is zero waste and plastic pollution. At Clean for Kids, we have environmental justice built into each of our 6 teams. Environmental justice, for example, means that no person should have to live near hazardous waste or dangerous air or water pollution even, especially because people of color are more likely than white people to live alongside power plants, oil refineries, landfills, and industrial areas. And they're also more likely to be exposed to higher levels of hazardous waste, air pollution, mercury, toxic chemicals, heavy metals, and pesticides. And also, did you know that people living in pollution can live 10 years less on average than someone breathing safe air? So with this in mind, we need protections for everybody, and especially those of people of color. So because no child should ever have to grow up near hazardous pollution, and every person has the right to clean water and clean air, and to just be environmentally safe, if that makes sense. Currently, the Navajo Nation in Flint, Michigan, and others lack clean, safe water. So it's important that we focus on these communities and make sure that we try and bring awareness to these environmental injustices that are not only around the world, but are also in our very own country. So please join us at Clean for Kids and cleanforkids.org to see what we're doing about all these environmental justices. Also, community service and internships are available. So students, please remember, if you are getting community service, please fill out 2 pages of notes and a short summary of what you've learned. Directions are at cleanforkids.org. And also, we have K through 12 contests and challenges. So please remember to enter our contests and challenges. Additionally, we have something new called a Call It Out Challenge. So as I mentioned before, we have a lot of environmental injustices, a lot of environmental problems. So one way that we're trying to bring awareness to this is through our Call It Out Challenge. So you can basically look up a environmental injustice or a rollback, which is an undoing of an environmental protection, that and call it out on how it harms our water, our air, public lands, climate, wildlife, and so on. And then you create an art or music, media, video, any type of media platform or medium, and you can post it to social media or send it to us and bring about awareness to that rollback or the undoing of protections, and bring more awareness, because under our current administration, there have been 100 environmental rollbacks, and these rollbacks are going to harm our air, our water, and so much more. So it's really important that we focus on these rollbacks and bring awareness to the public, so that way no more happen. So you can track all of these terrible things that are sadly progressing by using the Harvard and Columbia trackers on our website at Clean for Kids. Additionally, we are so thankful to be working with Hillary, an environmental lawyer from Columbia University. And we're so thankful to have her as a connection and to really learn more about everything that's going on, and to work with Columbia directly on this tracker. And we'll be hosting Hillary on July 9th. So stay tuned for that. But the reason why we are discussing things like this is because environmental injustices are not okay whatsoever. And in fact, environmental justice and injustices are social justices and injustices. So we're going to be talking a lot about that today. So it's really important that we bring awareness to this and, like we said, call it out. So I'd like to now introduce Judith, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about mercury and all the things going on around that toxic heavy metal.
Thank you, Lana. So yes, we all need to call out the 17 rollbacks of the coal power plants under the Trump administration, because power plants are very harmful because they poison our air and water. They can poison the fish, like in my poster. Coal-fired power plants are placed within 30 miles of a community of color. A study from EPA scientists found that in 46 states, communities of color are exposed to dangerous pollution at higher levels than white communities. Mercury is a type of toxic metal. It comes in different forms within the environment. It's a neurotoxin, which is a poison. It hurts our brains. It can even decrease our IQ levels. Mercury poisoning refers to the dangers of consuming mercury. Did you know that right now the native community of Grassy Narrows has been ruined by mercury poisoning? The government dumped 10 tons of toxic waste into the river that helps their community. As a result, the fish has been contaminated with extremely high levels of mercury, causing health problems. The community's youth is determined to get justice, and we should help too. So MATS means Mercury and Air Toxic Standards. Since MATS was put into place in 2011, we have had cleaner power plants, healthier people, and a safer environment. Mercury and other toxic air pollutants from over 580 coal and oil-fired power plants has saved lives. There are less premature deaths, heart and asthma attacks. The MATS rule was rolled back or eliminated under the Trump administration. Mercury is very bad for our health and bad for our economy. When workers are sick, it hurts the economy. Power plants are expensive and cause harm. An area of power plants is estimated to cost about $9.6 billion each year. Instead, we should invest in renewable energy. In this map, in the western part, which is on the left side of the map, 20 coal power plants have no retirement date, which means it can't stop ever working. More than half of those are in states of Montana, Utah, and Wyoming. Fine air pollution, are fine particle pollution that are tiny and small. It is actually smaller than human hair. This gets trapped into our lungs. We must stop air pollution sources to be healthier and so a study by the Harvard and CDC report states that African American made up 67% to 70% of COVID-19 deaths of a population, while only representing 32% of the population. African Americans are also more likely to live in neighborhoods that have concentrated poverty, pollution, and lead exposure, and more. This air pollution near these areas creates respiration or breathing issues that make a person more sensitive to COVID-19. This is an environmental injustice and health-related injustice. We must use our voices to bring awareness to these injustices.
Currently, California has established a 2,500 feet setback requirement for future oil and gas development. This means 2,500 feet away from residences, schools, childcare facilities, playgrounds, hospitals, or health clinics. The specific bill, AB 345, was proposed by Al Marzouchi, and it is necessary because oil and gas wells pose a significant risk to public health. In 2018, from a previous report by the Sky's Limit California Frac Tracker, it was shown that 850,000 Californians live less than 2,500 feet away from at least one oil or gas well. The horrible impact these wells have include cancer, infant mortality, depression, pneumonia, asthma, skin-related hospitalizations, and other general health symptoms. The issue is, according to Stanford report, oil and gas wells can contaminate a horizontal distance of 1 to 3 kilometers, meaning 2,500 feet is not enough. Although it is a necessary improvement, we can still do better. Regarding air pollution, oil and gas wells release toxic fumes into our atmosphere, contaminating our clean air while also destroying the ozone layer. The oil and gas industry produces tons of methane gas and is responsible for almost 40% of methane emissions in the US. Methane is more potent than carbon dioxide because it is 28% more powerful when it comes to warming up our globe. With increasing temperatures, a snowball effect is produced since it contributes to climate change. Ironically, there will be less snow, specifically in the Arctic. Sea ice is drastically decreasing, harming the natural habitat of many animals. Sign this petition to support Al Marzouchi's AB 345 bill. I will add it to the comment section. By putting down your name, you are stating oil operations don't belong near our homes, hospitals, and schools.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. That's the information that you're sharing is so important and so appreciated. Thank you so much for all of that great information. Darren, did you have something that you wanted to share about farm workers and pesticides?
Yes, I like to talk about pesticides and how they are an environmental justice issue. I know we talk a lot on these webinar series about how it's a public health issue, but these health issues are disproportionately represented in communities of color and communities with low socioeconomic status. For example, farm workers who live in rural areas, 20,000 U.S. farms each year get pesticide poisoning, and they can carry these pesticides home on clothing and skin, which puts their families and children at risk, and the larger farming community as well, and also rural communities. They have a lot of pesticides in their air. For example, 64% of air samples taken from farming communities in Minnesota contained at least one pesticide. There's also a racial inequality aspect. Latino children are 91% more likely than white children to be exposed to the highest levels of pesticides. And then this also goes into people who are disadvantaged by their income. Organic food is 47% more expensive on average than regular food. And these foods are not, organic food is not used synthetic or highly toxic pesticides. Those are not used on organic food. Also, people who are applying the pesticide applicators are mostly low-income people because that's a job that no one really wants, so only the people who really need the money are going to take it, and that obviously poses a lot of serious health risks since they will be inhaling and coming into contact with these pesticides on a daily basis. We also have to consider undocumented agricultural workers. There's an estimated 48 to 70% of California agricultural workers, those are undocumented. They're less likely to report pesticide poisonings because most of them, for reasons like they're just happy to have a job, don't want to cause any trouble, and they're aware that they are not likely to receive proper medical attention because of their undocumented status. So the effects of pesticides are underreported for both adult and child agricultural workers. Farm workers are also not provided with protections they need under the Federal Health and Safety Agency. For example, only 57% of farm workers surveyed in 7 California communities reported receiving pesticide safety training. So obviously we have to resolve a lot of issues it's a very complicated issue. But one thing we can do to start is supporting the CARE Act, which is the Children's Act for Responsible Employment and Farm Safety, which helps protect children in agriculture by reducing their hours, increasing minimum wage, limiting pesticide exposure, which is much like other laws protecting children in other fields like acting. Clean for Kids has a petition you can sign on our website. Another thing we can do is ban pesticides altogether. For example, pesticide chlorpyrifos, which is a broad-spectrum organophosphate insecticide, is linked to decreased IQ, increased risk for autism and ADHD, or insomnia, severe depression, impaired memory and concentration, things like that. It's banned or will be banned in 3 states, California, our home state, Hawaii, and New York. But there is proposed legislation to ban it nationally. The bill is called HR 230, which is supported by our local representative, Mike Levin. This bill prohibits the sale and use of existing stock of chlorpyrifos and would ban the continued sale of chlorpyrifos in the future. And it also requires EPA to ban chlorpyrifos residue on food under the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So some things we could be doing are expressing our support for this bill, signing petitions, and staying informed on how this issue is spread into multiple communities who are disadvantaged in a lot of ways, including environmental and pesticide issues.
Thank you, Darren. It's really important that we talk about these injustices on all 4 front lines, I guess you could say. It's not just, air pollution, it's also in pesticides, it's in water, it's in drilling, it's in so many things, and that's why we stress that this environmental justice component is linked throughout our 6 teams, because there's a way you'll find an environmental justice in between all 6 team focuses. So before we introduce our speakers for today, I'm just going to briefly talk a little bit more about how particularly the climate crisis hits people of color the hardest, not only in the United States, but also around the world. So one reason is that people of color and low-income people often live in these areas where they experience hotter temperatures, right? So during these deadly heat waves, their neighborhoods tend to lack trees and they lack grass. And these trees and grass would prevent pavement and concrete from getting hot. But when that doesn't happen, these heat islands are created. So this lack of vegetation and evaporation causes cities to become warmer than the countryside in the more suburban areas. So many also more big parks and open spaces allow more airflow, but obviously in these areas they're much more concentrated, much more polluted, and they don't really have these spaces. They're congested, if you might say. Also wetlands, ponds, or water sources also allow things to cool off through evaporations and things within the water cycle. So a lot of people living in these heat islands, particularly those people of color, are often also near freeways or industrial facilities, which also produce a lot of poisonous pollution, which as Judith was saying earlier, in terms of like air pollution, people who are exposed to air pollution are more susceptible to get COVID-19, as they usually have underlying respiratory issues or issues with their lungs, and it makes them more sensitive to this virus that is harmful directly to your lungs and your breathing and everything like that. So it's really important that we see the connections between everything. Additionally, our world is warming. So before we called it climate change, it was also known as global warming. While the terming has changed because it's extreme weathers on both sides, there is still an overall warming trend in our atmosphere and on our Earth. And so with this warming, people are moving north and they're migrating. And so also additionally, crops are failing because of this drought in certain areas that used to be full of water and rain, and now they're not getting this adequate water sources. So a lot of crops are moving. So those people who are dealing with those crops are also moving north, and so we're seeing a lot of shift from the southern states, northern states, and so forth. This also has impact on animals and such, as armadillos actually began moving from southern states to Missouri about 20 years ago. So that's like a cool fun fact. But warmer temperatures also cause extreme weather patterns like hurricanes, floods, and drought. And just a quick little story. I'm originally from Florida before I moved to San Diego, and there was a lot of hurricanes, and there's a lot of hurricanes in Florida. You know, we're known as like a hurricane state. And I am almost about to be 18, and in my about 15 years of living in Florida, I saw a huge shift in the frequency of hurricanes ever since I started high school, about in like late middle school. So it's not, so these extreme weather patterns are happening, they are occurring more often, and it's important that we address this. So how do we, you know, address not only these environmental issues, but these environmental and climate injustices as well? So one thing that we can look at are policies like the Green New Deal, which address both environmental and climate change problems and also injustices by putting people to work in renewable energy, which would help decrease the air pollution and a lot of things like that, and get people to work on problems of pollution and climate change action overall, which would also address a lot of these inequalities and racism that we see. But like we said, there's a lot more work to do. So with that, I just want to start introducing our amazing speakers for tonight. So Judith, if you'd like. Or I mean Alice, sorry.
Thank you, Leanna. And now we are honored to have Sonia Robinson from NAACP to discuss racial, social, and environmental justice. Not only is she the chair of the Environmental Justice Committee at NAACP, but she also hosts a radio show on God One Radio at 3 p.m. on Saturdays.
Apologize. And yes, and the show is called Sun Sustainable Urban Network. I am so impressed by the youth here on the show. Susan and I have been talking about having you as our special guest to feature you guys. You guys are so knowledgeable, inspiring, and there's a special, I don't want to necessarily say the word magic, but that's the word that lands on me now, that youth possess, that us adults necessarily grew out of. So stay inspired, and I think Susan is doing a wonderful job in educating you. So environmental and climate justice, when done correctly, and that is the premise. So when done correctly, it directly intersects as well as addresses racial, social, and economic justice, as well as equity. And so I will touch on some of those specifics on what I mean by racial justice and social justice, as well how that affects the economic justice and equity. Although, in a light summary ahead of that, I believe a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. will probably best summarize some of the extra details that I might add to it. And again, I am so inspired by you Clean Earth for Kids group, so you guys rock. So the quote is stated as, "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love." And again, that quote is by Martin Luther King Jr. So he's sharing that, you know, to have power without any compassion and love is abusive, right? And as we know, that absolute power corrupts absolutely. But yet, if you only operate in love, but yet you have no power to leverage your compassion, right? So now that's just like anemic. And so it doesn't perpetuate the justices that we want to see holistically. So I believe in light of the climate that we're currently experiencing, and I mean climate more holistically and not specifically, as we are always looking, you know, this group here, we're very sensitive to environmental and climate justice in general. But I mean from our social perspective, if you will, from the national pulse of the climate where we're currently seeing this happening. And so again, as we see that absolute power corrupts absolutely, So when we're looking at from a social justice, what does social justice means, kind of breaking it down from like upward mobility and giving people based on their talents and abilities and skills that they have a track record, a trajectory of upward mobility. And so if social justice currently is thriving and existing within the United States of America, in the country that we live in, then you will see people of color, Black community, Asian, and so many others, you know, those Latinos and Spanish speaking, operating in more places of power based on their skills and abilities and talents that they provide. It is an upward mobility trajectory. So that's one, like just me giving you my personal opinion of how I view what that social justice is. So then you look at the racial justice, and I know my brother Yusuf is clearly in Thomas. This is really his wheelhouse, although he is also on my committee, the Environmental Climate Justice Committee, because we know the importance of addressing all of it together and working collaboratively. But in my discussing the racial justice aspect is literally that you have barriers and challenges and obstacles just on your race, on your ethnicity, right? So nothing else is determining where you're going to live, your neighborhood. As you mentioned, the urban heat index. I don't think you use the word index, but it's all pretty much the same of what you shared. So as you mentioned, like there's no shading, right? Because of those communities. So one thing I want to share from an environmental climate justice committee with the NAACP is that toxins, the number one indicator of where toxins, which you guys cover beautifully, but the number one indicator of where toxins are located is race. They look at race, as you shared in many of your presentations, of where the coal plants are, right? They look at race, where they dump the toxins are, and that people of color and in Black communities and brown communities are unfortunately suffering, right? So then you look at it again from the additional marketing, social and racial, you know, injustices, right? And so that these people already, you know, are not getting the opportunity for that upward mobility in society. So then you're going to burden them even more, you know, and place on their shoulders some polluted coal plants, right? Or polluted air, poor water, and we can go on and many different examples of this. So again, I'm pleased to be here. And so I do also have an opportunity in addressing these items on my show, which is SUN, Sustainable Urban Network, where we are looking at, we have different series. And so I have a youth program, again, that I'm excited to have you guys as our special guests. Here we have different topics that we're talking about. Housing was last week. The week before then, we did feature racial justice. I have a cousin as a Black Panther. She joined a panel, as well as another brother that works really close to Yusuf, Darwin. He's a professor and part of the Racial Justice Coalition. We had an attorney that is also addresses these issues and have a training program to address racial justice. We didn't realize this was going to be the climate that week that show aired, but that's the way, you know, God would have it. We also talk about renewable energy, right? We have a new renewable energy series. So you guys brought up solar and things of that nature. So even prior to me being chair on the environmental climate justice, I was already working in this field. You know, I was already working with many different organizations throughout the county of San Diego, as my brother Yusuf is doing as well with San Diego 350 Climate Action Campaign, the San Diego Community Choice Alliance, and many others. And so one of the things I previously worked as a clean energy organizer. And so the effort on working as a clean energy organizer was to push forward community choice energy. So at the time, you know, it didn't even look like we had a blink of light to potentially obtain community choice energy. Fast forward, not only is it in the city of San Diego, but we have two programs, you know, one in the North County as well as in San Diego. I don't want to take too much more time. You have plenty of other other guest speakers, but I will want to leave with you that we are currently also working, and Susan is working really strongly with us because she's also part of our committee and helping to protect solar customers. So just to let you all know, both our fantastic youth as well as other guest speakers, currently there's an effort to try to just totally change the benefits of solar customers with net metering. There's a petition by NERA, which is New England Peers Association, petition FERC, which is our Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, to change jurisdiction for solar.
Kind of think about, you know, where we put our power, whether it's like through our vote, through our voices, through awareness, and so forth. And I'm really excited to work with you, especially on the show and everything, and talk more about renewable energy, as I'd love to learn about that. So thank you again. Really inspiring work. Thank you for all you do, especially through the NAACP and Environmental Justice Committee. And we look forward to hearing more about all of your wonderful work. Thank you. So now I would like to introduce Yusef Miller, who's from the Racial Justice Coalition. And Yusef, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, thank you for this wonderful presentation that Clean Earth for Kids have put together. It was just amazing and inspiring. And it's very important that people of young age get it, because the people of our age and the people who are older than us don't either. So when they think about environmental justice and environmental equity, and you bring in race, they say, okay, you're bringing up the race card again, what's going on here? But they really don't understand the impact between environments. And they think that we all live in the same environment, that we all live in the same climate. But actually there are micro environments and microclimates that people are in they're more affected negatively based on your ethnicity, where you come from, who you are, where you live closer to these toxins, and they don't get it. They don't get the need for cooling zones. They don't get the need for greenery. They don't get the need for more water sources to absorb heat in these heat islands that we have. And they don't get it, and it's up to us to make sure that they realize on the ground, what does it mean to be a person of color and breathing the air of a person of color in their environment, drinking the water of a person of color's environment. And when you really look at it, if you break down the toxicities, no one would want to drink our water. I mean, no one would want to breathe our air. So they think that the environment is ubiquitous and it's one smooth environment, but it's not. It's an overall toxic environment, but some people's environment are more toxic than others, and it needs to be recognized. So then once you recognize it, you'll say to yourself, wow, if that's the case with people of color, why aren't they the most populated group in the environmental push, which we're not. The most populated people in the environmental push, we barely see them, and they're now starting to get the upswing, but what happened to them? And that's when the overall justice comes into effect. The mentality of Black people and people of color in general is, if I may kind of tongue-in-cheek use this expression, that why should I care about a polar bear when I'm being beat down on the street by law enforcement? How do I have the luxury to sit back and think of an ice cap when my kids barely have food to eat? I don't make enough money at my job. When these things are luxuries, so you can see a group from a luxury position can look back and say, wow, the ice caps are melting, the polar bears are starving, we get more hurricanes and things like that going on. But then the person of color who also cares about those things, we're human beings, we also care about those things. But before that on the plate is the environmental justice of just living. So there's an environment that we breathe and that we drink and that we eat, and that, you know, the heat index, that's an environment, but also the mental psychological environment of people of color acted upon by bad actors. Bad actors, I mean white supremacy and capitalism that affects the same communities that are affected in the environmental injustice. So you'll see that people of color, it's not that they're uninterested in environmental justice or that they don't want to be involved in environmental justice, but there's so much on their plate just to drive from work to home, for their children to drive from work to home, that comes primary to finding out about the grasses and the oil drilling and things of this nature. We can look at our brothers and sisters on the indigenous community, and they, I'll let them speak for themselves, but I'll just give you a little glimpse into it, that, the drilling and the fracking, goes into their water and it goes into their plants, and they're actually eating oil. They're actually eating this toxicity. It's not by accident that we choose to use their areas versus other people's areas. You won't find it in Beverly Hills, anybody drilling for anything. You won't find them drilling for anything in La Jolla or Carlsbad. And this is not by accident, it's by design that these areas of not unconcerned, not caring, is falling into the area of people of color. And all people feel this pinch, this oppression, their airways, in their drinking water, in their environment, or lack thereof. So we see when we come to these concrete jungles where we have no grass, no flowers, no trees, no shade trees, and if they are there, they're not living. You'll see brown grass, yellow grass, trees that are split open, uncared for, and that all feeds into the overall environmental injustice and inequity in people of color. And we feel that. We feel that in our blood pressure. We feel that in our psychological interaction with each other. When you have that heat index rise in the projects, I'm from the projects. I'm from Chester, Pennsylvania, and next to us is a refinery called Marcus Hook, in a city called Marcus Hook. It's a huge refinery. And when this heat index rises, we think that it's just each other that's getting on each other's nerves. The reason why I'm so irritated around this environment, because this person said this, or these people are doing that, when the heat in the environment is really raising your blood pressure, making you on edge. The air is so thin, the oxygen is so sparse, that it's causing this environmental shift, which causes us to not even get along with each other. Especially when those hot summer months come, you find a lot of violence, it raises. And so it has an effect on the psyche, it has effect on the blood pressure, it has psych on your stress, and not to mention the things you eat and the things you drink. And most vulnerable is our elderly, which, we care, everybody cares about their elderly, but, there's certain groups that really, like, grandma lives in the house, and grandfather lives in the house, and the kids live in the family is a really tight unit. So we see grandma and grandpa suffering from the heat index, and we see the children with asthma and all these other allergies and reactive airways from this thing happening in front of our face. And we couldn't at the time define it. We had no idea what it was, what it meant, but it was something going on that we couldn't put our finger on it. Now we understand, right, that it's the environmental inequities that, on top of all the other stresses in people of color, that's causing this reaction internally and externally in our families. So it's wonderful that the youth, Clean Earth for Kids, and everyone at that age range is getting it right off the bat, understanding it right off the bat, so we can make incremental changes now, but we can make a larger overall change in the future, where we don't have to keep having this conversation, where this conversation is secondary, because we already got rules in place, laws in place that prevent this from getting worse and actually turn back the clock on this environmental trajectory that we have. So thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for the invite. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Susan. And thank you, everyone from Clean Earth for Kids.
Thank you so much, Yusuf. It's really important to make these connections. And I really do appreciate you making that connection, not only to show how focusing on like activism and environmental activism and injustice is really a luxury, and especially in communities of color, particularly because of a lot of other factors, that, like you mentioned, people have to go to work, people have to take their kids to school. And it's really important that you bring that up, because I don't think a lot of people realize that, because it doesn't necessarily directly impact them. So thank you for making that connection. And also that connection that you mentioned on how these heat islands and this heat index, how it affects the human psyche and also physically people, and how it also socially impacts it. I think those are really, really important connections that, we don't necessarily always think about, and it's really informative. And I personally was really informed when you said that. So thank you so much for everything you're doing and for speaking about this to it and inspiring us youth to, really take these problems head on, and like you said, make incremental change to make a larger change overall. So thank you again so much and for everything you're doing. And now I'd like to hand it off to Judith to introduce our next speaker.
I will now like to introduce Jamie Washington, a well-respected teacher that has been teaching the youth for so many years, making her very experienced. So Jamie, can you please share with us any ideas or thoughts you have, please? Oh.
So Judith, right now Jamie is muted but doesn't realize it. So we're gonna fix that real quick.
Okay.
So, there you go. You were muted. I'm
Hi.
so sorry. So can we hear from you again? And yes,
Okay,
as
here we
Judith
go.
said, thank
Okay.
you so much, Jamie.
Okay.
And
I'm
yes.
also known as Mrs. Washington because I've been
Yes.
a teacher forever. Suzanne invited me to this panel because I have been basically talking about social, racial injustice on my Facebook page. And when I listened to all of you speak, I was very impressed about how you connected all of the environmental injustices that are a part of this system that keeps people of color oppressed. I like your mission, I like your vision, and you are tomorrow's leaders, and I'm excited about you. I'm not specialized in environmental justice, but what I can tell you is because there's been so much injustice towards Black men and women when it comes to officers of the law, I have been speaking out on my Facebook page. And Suzanne and I know each other because she was a mentor to me when I was a teacher. And I think that was for 2 years. So she reached out to me, asked me to speak at the panel. And basically what I can tell you about injustice is it's been happening a very long time. I do think once you focus on criminal injustice, police officers who feel they have the right to be judge, jury, and executioner, and they look at our men of color and feel that they can abuse them when they're handcuffed or kill them, that needs to stop. I feel strongly about that. But when you take care of, excuse me, the inequities in justice, that will hopefully shed light on the other injustices and things that are oppressive to us, like being in the worst neighborhoods next to coal plants. Because of the movement that has recently happened for 2 weeks, I don't think I've slept very much because history is being made right now. People are now feeling moved to correct the racial injustice that's happening to people of color in poor communities. Their eyes are wide open. We have people globally, millions and millions of people are watching America and the way they treat their people of color. So when you address the justice issue against where we are the victims and we are abused and we are killed, and it's just criminal. I think what's going to happen is once reform takes place, police officers are fired or go to jail, depending on what they uncover when all of this investigation is done. I think you're going to see people wanting to help contribute funds to environmental causes for people of color to correct these injustices that have happened to us. So I've been very passionate about following what's been happening in the news. I think we are going into a new, I want to call it the era of awakening. People paying attention to people of color and how they are abused and how they are not a high priority in a predominantly white society. You've got people reaching out to people of color saying, what can I do to help correct this injustice? This is what I'm finding. I have colleagues that are contacting me. Jamie, how can I help? I said, read as much as you can about the history of America in which Africans were brought here as slave labor, not paid, abused and killed and treated like property. We weren't even considered human. And that happened during the 1600s. And throughout history, we have had to fight to even be considered human. And I believe a lot of times white people go about their lives, and you mentioned that. They take care of their kids, they go to work, they hear about the horrific things that are happening to us. They say that's terrible, but they don't have the time to follow through with more investigative work or joining an organization and contributing and sending in donations to help groups that are trying to fight injustice when it comes to people of color. Because we had COVID, I can tell you this, in our school district, everybody went home Friday, March 13th, 2020. I will never forget it. We never returned. And during those times, we have been exposed to COVID. It has been revealed that people of color, especially Black people, are dying in higher numbers than any other group in our country because of the lack of treatment towards us. A lot of us are not insured. And if we're not insured and our blood pressure isn't taken care of, or we suffer from diabetes, Black people and people of color don't have the funds to buy medication. So those diseases run rampant in our bodies and they go untreated. So when someone does contract COVID, they die. And that has been uncovered. And since we've been here, we had 3 murders that have happened, and forgive me if I forgot their names. Ahmaud Arbery, who was ambushed by a vigilante group. They saw that he was Black. They took it upon themselves to arrest him. I really do believe they were out to hunt him, and he died. You know what happened there. Then there was Breonna. Breonna was asleep when there was a police force or an organization that invaded their home. It was the wrong home. Her boyfriend thought it was a home invasion. He shot at them, injured a police officer in the leg, I believe. They returned fire, and from what I remember, Breonna died in her bed, and the 8 bullets killed her. And then the straw that broke the camel's back was the public murder of George Floyd. We were all exposed to that, and we were traumatized. And then I believe what happened was white people finally said, you know what? This was brought up over and over. Black men were being killed by police officers. They have been dying from chokeholds and telling police officers they couldn't breathe. And they would not release their arms or their knees from the Black man's head or neck, whatever part of the body, it doesn't matter. This has been going on for a long time. And because of COVID, we're all shelter in place. People want to do something. They want to be proactive. So when they saw George die in a public setting, we could no longer deny that racism against Black men and women existed, because they saw 3 events happen in 30 days and people were upset. Now white people are faced with, how did we come to this? And so Black folks are telling them, this is because you have a system of racism where people of color cannot rise up, and they don't have the same access to resources that you have to be in the best schools. And when you're in the best school, that means you're in the most affluent neighborhood. And now people are saying, well, oh my gosh, I did not realize, well, I have Black friends and they live in my middle class area. Well, guess what? That doesn't happen with most Black folks. And now those conversations are starting, that you cannot ignore the oppressed anymore. The oppressed are growing in numbers. People are losing their jobs because of COVID. We can't ignore the situation. Now it's in front of their faces, and they have to confront the hate that comes from police officers who do not care for any of us, they see us as a burden. They have to address why are our athletes so angry? Well, guess what? Your athletes have been angry for years. Now you finally want to listen to them. And the athletes are saying there have been problems. I just read that LeBron James is going to head up an organization to make sure that people of color have access to voting. He's going to work with other political leaders in neighborhoods of color so that they can be set up so that they can vote in November for the next election. So I think you guys are part of the future. And if you were watching TV every day like I did, the people who were protesting were your age. I saw people all the way up to 32. I saw them invite their grandparents out and their parents. Of course, some of it wasn't peaceful, but I think the world sent a message that you need to take care of your brother. Your Black brothers are suffering and you're still killing them. Take care of your brothers. America, solve your problem. So we are starting to see symbols of oppression coming down, like the Confederate statues of the generals that fought in the South. We're seeing Confederate flags being taken away. Those are symbols of oppression to remind us Black folks that we were slaves. So people are feeling badly right now. They're reading about racism, and the young people are impatient. They will not stand for this kind of treatment. And I am so glad that you won't stand for communities of color being subjected to environmental pollutants. So I applaud you for that. So I'm not sure if I addressed anything that you wanted to hear.
Oh my goodness, Jamie, welcome.
That's my experience. But I think if you take care of the justice issue, white people will, and athletes, because I thank God they're getting involved, because people will love. Who does not know who Michael Jordan is? Who doesn't know in this world? Everybody in the world knows who Michael Jordan is. He is involved. He is done. He said, enough is enough. I saw a grown man die he was murdered at the hands of a police officer. Michael Jordan, of all people who never takes a political stance, is voicing his frustration with our inept and cruel system. We've got LeBron James paying attention, all of the young NFL players that children admire are now speaking out. So the whole world has your attention. I believe you are going to succeed. I think you're going to have more people coming on board, because this face of racism is dark. It is ugly. People do not want to unveil the face of racism. Now they have to. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think we're going to have people donating and listening in the future. I'm done.
Yeah, can I just say really quickly, thank you so much, Jimmy, for sharing. And I know this is the first time that you've publicly spoken out about this. And as an educator and someone who, your mentor in the educational world, in the former one, you are now a teacher. So that's my point. Yeah. So yes, and we are so incredibly thankful that you're here with us, and we're so excited about the future. We have social justice and these things embedded in Clean Earth for Kids and environmental justice, but we would like to have a committee on this, as the NAACP does as well. And of course, invite our speakers today to be a part of that and lead that for us. And that would just be amazing. So we're so excited, and we will definitely connect you to other people. There's an event July 7th that through Eco Rotary, they asked me for the speaker today. And of course, Sonia and Yusuf always, right? They're always welcome, and Sterling as well. I definitely would like to talk with you about dates, because you have an important message to share, just as Yusuf, Sonia and Sterling as well, and all of the students and volunteers today. I think I felt your passion. I know we all did. And I just want to say thank you for your friendship. And
no problem, Suzanne.
And thank you for all you do. And I'm so proud, as I have been for years, to know you and to work with you and to
Wonderful.
be in your life.
Yes,
So thank
anytime.
you so much for being here for sure. Judith, what
Okay.
would you like to say?
I just wanted to say that I learned so much from what you said. Thank you so much for like teaching
Okay.
us your knowledge and
It was a
what
lot, so I hope I did
yeah,
not
yeah.
you.
You did really good, like
Thank you.
showing your passion, and
Mhm.
because it's a really harsh like topic and big topic actually.
Yeah, it is huge.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And yeah, so we care so much, and we are so happy to work with you and
Okay.
continue to work for change. So
There
thank
you
you
go.
so much.
Great job. Great job. Darren, would you like to introduce our next guest?
Yes, I would. I'm happy to introduce Sterling Macer Jr. He is a brilliant actor, producer, director, writer, and educator. I know Suzanne, she thinks that you're one of the best actors she's ever seen. And, you know, I've probably seen you too, because you have appeared in TV series like Bones and movies like Dragon, The Bruce Lee History, and also the recent director of a psychological thriller called Double Down. So we're excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, you know, I have to just say that when Suzanne asked me to join in, I told her flat out, I said, Suzanne, I know nothing about the environment and environmental justice and everything else. It's not that I didn't care, but I was leaning towards maybe being one of those brothers that was like, well, but that's the polar bear's problem, right? But, you know, listening to you wonderful, wonderful young people, you all are so impressive. And I feel like, you know, though I knew nothing starting off going in, I feel like I have command now to go out and talk about this in real meaningful, substantive ways that can connect the dots. What you guys did, I want you to understand how impressive that really was. Because what you guys did was you explained how everything is connected. And I've heard, I'm a news head. I watch, you know, of course, CNN, MSNBC, I'm all up in, you know, the New York Times, everything. I even tip in, I watch a little bit of Fox just to hear the craziness. But I will tell you this, I've heard people say, oh, but it's all connected to racial injustice, environmental injustice is racial injustice. And you know, that sounds good, but I never fully understood how until you guys brought it all together. And let me tell you something. You know, as Suzanne will tell you, I'm from Missouri, and you know, I remember when I saw my first armadillo squashed on the side of the road in Missouri, and I was like, what the heck is an armadillo doing up here in Missouri? Because when I was growing up in Missouri, there were no armadillos in Missouri. Come back to visit a little while later, I see him, you know, it's roadkill alongside the road. And I was like, well, I guess you just shouldn't have been in Missouri. That's kind of what happens. But now I understand. And I mean, you even explained the migration of armadillos. That was very, very, very impressive. And you explained, and this is what's important. You explained how a complex system works. It's how a nonlinear system works. And it's a very, very, very important tool and skill to have, because truly everything is connected. Now, you know, amongst Black folk, in Black community, in circles, you know, you will hear some things. There's always a couple of people when I'm with my circle of friends, and you go, they're the conspiracy theorists, right? They're like, yeah, and that's because, something else and something else and something else in my neighborhood, and that's why, my grandmother has an itch on her arm. And, you kind of go, well, that might be a conspiracy theory, but you know what? That is why grandma has that itch on her arm. So it was really, really impressive. And coming into this, my daughter, who's about your age, I think she's a little younger. She was asking me what I was getting ready to do, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna watch a presentation and kind of speak on a panel and everything." And she looked, she was really interested, and she was like, "Well, what's it about?" And I was like, well, but now I want to plug her in somehow. How can she be down? Because you guys are wonderful, and there were some shocking statistics. Just what flashed on the screen very quickly. I didn't have a chance to study it, but it was the Missouri graphic. It was really the national graphic. I think I probably just frozen. It said my connection was slow. But anyway, it was the national graphic that showed where the different coal plants were and where the different plants were that had an effect on various communities. And Missouri was bright red. And I had no idea. I mean, it was a stunning graphic. You guys brought so much knowledge to the table, and I'm so thankful. Now, much of what I do that occupies a lot of my mind and a lot within my circle of friends, and I'm starting to do more of, and that I've written about recently, really has to do with addressing and trying to understand the broader context of systemic racism, right? We're hearing that word thrown around a lot, and for good reason, obviously, systemic racism. But what's gonna happen now? And you can already see it happening if you pay attention to what's going on in the news. You have to stay vigilant here. Is the pushback about denial that systemic racism even exists. You hear it from the administration now. Certain key figures in the administration are saying, "Oh, I don't believe there's systemic racism." You hear it in leading law enforcement officials. "Oh, systemic racism, I don't think it is in the police departments." Are there a few bad apples? Yes, there are a few bad apples, but it's not systemic. And so for me, it's really important for people to understand the broad context of what systemic racism is. And I'm not going to take up too much more time, but I am going to kind of touch a little bit on that. See, Suzanne knows this. I see this in a much broader context than probably most. Now you guys see it in a very broad context as well. But for most people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis, I see this issue in a very, very broad context. And I see it in terms that people aren't necessarily comfortable with. Because I see this whole battle as an extension of the Civil War. This is just the Civil War by other means. That's what we are in now. It has not ended. It is just now, and this is where systemic racism comes starkly into play. You'll find that when you start talking about Civil War and you mention the Civil War, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Blah, 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 blah. Well, let's face it. The Civil War was a war for white supremacy. It was about white supremacy. Anytime you can say, we feel like we have the right to enslave another group of people, you're saying I am superior, I am superior to that group of people. And so, of course, we know the outcome of the Civil War, and we know, the Reconstruction and the failure of that, and the chosen means of taking the life of Black men and women. The chosen means was lynching, and lynching spiked after the Civil War. They spike from the Reconstructions up through basically, with a couple of dips here and there, up through basically the 30s and 40s, well into Jim Crow. It is nothing but a spike in the curve. And there's a reason for that. It is the people harboring the same mentality that they never let go of, even after defeat. We're trying to manifest and project that same mentality going along. That's why we have vigilantism, the Ku Klux Klan, and all these other things. That now we got the neo-Nazis, and sort of we sort of kind of dry clean the term of white nationalism, right? That is, sort of white Aryanism, white supremacy. There is a war for white supremacy continues to be fought. The Civil War did not end. So when we start talking about systemic racism and understanding how systemic racism works, I encourage you not to mistake the rules and the regulations that you guys are so valiantly fighting to get justice and equity in, and fight the rollback of these, and put better rules and regulations in place. I don't want you guys to mistake the rules and regulations for the system itself, right? Because rules and regulations go back and forth, but systemic racism, and let me back up before I go on to say this next thing. Many people will tell you, even if you don't bring up your well-reasoned, well-researched, provable data points about how the rules and regulations themselves are creating inequitable racial outcomes, even if you guys weren't able to bring that to the fore, and sometimes even if you are, they will say to you, yeah, but you know what? Most of our rules and regulations, most of our laws are fair. The laws themselves don't say Black people can't do this while white people can do that, or Black people must do this while white people don't have to do that. They will say that, and they will use it as a justification to say, well, so systemic racism does not exist. But you have to understand, this gets me back to the point I was getting ready to make. Systemic racism is the ghost in the machine, right? Systemic racism, it enters the system through the enculturation of where you guys stand on the front lines. You guys are at the nascent, are combating where not just where you guys are with in the environmental concerns and how it impacts the rules and regulations, but where you are in your day-to-day interactions with your peer groups who know nothing about these environmental regulations, who know nothing really about law, the general laws of the land, common law of the land. You guys are at the catching people at the nascent stage of this enculturation, and have the opportunity to combat it and undo it before it fully sets in. Because bigotry, and now I'm talking about bigotry, I'm not talking about systemic racism. Bigotry is enculturated in the home in general, or whatever surrogate is a home for a young person. That's where it is created. That's where bigotry forms, right? Now, bigotry, as you grow up, you have these bigoted ideas, you move on and you plug into the working world as a full-fledged adult. You enter into institutions. You enter into places of power, seats of power, and people take and carry what has been enculturated with them, what is bigoted points of view, and then they work in the system, in the machine, and they bring that ghost into it, and it becomes systemic because it works as a whole. So where you guys are on the front lines, not just by the issue that you guys are so wonderfully championing, but simply by your age and the malleability of thought, of the formations of philosophy and thought, and how life should work and how people should be treated, that takes place at a young age. You guys are at that stage where you are on the front lines of undoing that enculturation and can stop the seed, the ghost that goes into the machine that creates systemic racism. You can stop it in its tracks. And I'm so proud that you guys are so turned on and tuned in, and dare I say, to use a cliche, woke, that you're aware enough to do this and combat it right now. You guys are the champions leading the way. You're more important. You're far more important than the people sitting up in the White House at this time, in the administration. You're more important than they are. In a few years, they're going to be gone. They're going to be gone. And it's going to be yours. And so what you can do along the way to help undo those things, I'm just so excited and proud sitting here. This has been a masterclass for me, a masterclass. And I feel armed by what you guys are doing. And I just kind of want to go back to Sonia's quote. And it was really wonderful to hear her quote Martin Luther King. And basically, I'm not going to try and quote it because I don't know the quote, but I know the trajectory of the quote, and one aspect of it is the result of the of power without love, right? The result of power without love. And so what you guys are doing, I'm going to tie this in here in a second, but what you guys are doing is creating an environment where there is equitable love. That's what I like. Because, you know, when you're doing unto your neighbor as yourself, that is equitable love, right? And so for me, it made me think, you know, because, you know, I'm in the entertainment business, I'm an actor, I came up, you know, in the theater. In fact, my theater roots are in San Diego. I was trained at the Old Globe Theaters, University of San Diego, a Masters of Fine Arts program in conservatory there. I lived in Ocean Beach for a few years. I love San Diego. So I'm a theater guy. I worked at the Globe and at the La Jolla Playhouse, et cetera, et cetera. I know the place. I love it. Anyway, that's a side note. Get all excited talking about San Diego. But as a theater guy, there's a very famous Black playwright. His name used to be Leroy Jones. He is now known as Amiri Baraka and has been known as Amiri Baraka for most of his life. It's a wonderful play called The Slave, and it is about a African-American leader of this revolution at a time where there is a war going on between Black people and those that side with them and the white power structure. And literally bombs are going off during this play. And this leader goes into this house of his old teacher, his old instructor, who was a white man, who is now married to his ex-wife. And they have this debate about the efficacy of his approach and his philosophies and how they turn dark. And in a stark, brutally honest confession after he's ingested a lot of alcohol. He says that he knows that this is at best, and this is where we get to the result of power without love. He says he knows that this is a war that is just the only thing it is going to accomplish is to change the complexion of tyranny. And so I want to encourage you guys, as you continue to fight this good fight and raise people like me, raise my awareness, raise my level of enthusiasm, raise my understanding. As you continue to do this, continue to address at a human level, the human decency level, at the equitable love level. Because if that isn't fully rooted, the foundation of any of these causes that we're going for, there won't be love in it. And the only thing that we will do is change the complexion of tyranny. So keep at it, keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to support you in whatever way I can. You know, Suzanne knows how to get a hold of me. I want to plug in and kind of get it out there. So feel free to reach out. I'm here for you. I'm so proud of you, and thank you so much. And all the speakers here too. It's been a stunning experience for me. Stunning.
I have to just say thank you so much. And yes, so proud to be your friend. So proud of you. Thank you so much, and all that you bring to so many, making people laugh, making people think about important issues for decades. So thank you so much. And yeah, so excited, and your daughter is welcome. And yes, you guys are all, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you're all, you know, social justice, environmental justice, however it looks, warriors with us, and with Clean Earth for Kids. And definitely, I'm sure Sonia feels the same way with NAACP. And Yusuf is involved in very many important organizations as well. So thank you guys so much for being here. This has just been an outstanding experience for me personally, caring so much about all of you here today. And I'm so proud of the youth, of course, and all they do. I just have to say, you know, last night Judith was working on coal, and there's so much information about mercury poisoning and all of these things happening, and air pollution and color, you know, in communities of color, and we have so much data. But I really love the way that, of course, the work ethic, I mean, these people put in so much time. They put in so much time. We have a scholarship, we have a scholarship button, by the way, FYI, that we'll be letting people know. And you know, we don't take one dime. Like I do this, we don't take any money. We're all volunteer, all of us here. It's all heart, all love, all the time, 7 days a week. We absolutely believe in our message and these people here before you. And I know they are our future, our future and our future leaders, and just so incredibly proud of them, and so excited for us to all be connected again. So thank you guys so much. So I'll get ready to close in just a second. I wanted to say that this is a weekly panel discussion. We come on and we talk about these issues. You're absolutely welcome at any time to let me know when you're available to be a guest or hang out or all that stuff. And Judith and others are creating, you know, our free books, because our goal is to be able to teach everybody to read for free, speak out and have these skills. Drama is a big part of that, and acting. So we're absolutely excited to have people share their skills, and we'll have it on Clean Earth for Kids. We're improving our website. So that's the goal, because how people advocate for themselves if they are missing the skills or the confidence. So I'd also like to shout out right now, Kevin is graduating. Many of our seniors are graduating at this moment as we speak, so they're not with us here today. But shout out to Kevin and to all of our seniors. And we love you and we're so proud of you. And shout out to Janice, who is not here right now, and Hannah and everybody that's working so hard. And thank you so much to our board, Jay Klappenstein, educator for decades, Dr. Emily Catalan, Dr. Sarah Jean Royer, and Jim Wong. And I'm sure I'm forgetting people, but we're all going to come together and make great change. Thank you so much for bringing us awareness about all these issues. I learned so much today, and I'm thinking about systemic racism in new ways. Every time Sonia and Jamie speak, I learned something new. And Sterling, thank you so much, because just your perspective, it just really brought it home for me. And I loved it. It was phenomenal and fabulous. And I'm just so excited about our future. So what I'd love to do is to have each one of our youth members, our youth here today, say their thoughts, and then also the people that spoke today. And that way we can make sure that we're connected and that everybody's had a chance. So Darren, can you start, please?
Sure, I'd love to. Well, specifically speaking about the last presentation, I just want to say that was really important to me, at least, just because, I don't know, I mean, it's sort of intuitive that the system isn't just made up of all the rules, but I need to hear it to like fully understand it. So thank you for educating us on that. But overall, this has been a really eye-opening experience, and I really appreciate everyone taking the time to speak about this and to educate us. So thank you very much.
You guys can speak out without me saying, so go for it. You decide.
Okay, may I go then?
Go for it.
Okay, I just wanted to give some closing thoughts. I think something I've really seen, I guess I could say, I'm really big on interconnectedness. That is something, I guess you could say, philosophy I really believe in, because I really believe all of these issues are interconnected. And today, I think this discussion really stressed that, and there's a lot of awareness brought to that, especially with each of our presentations, and then all of our speakers, talking about how it all connects. For me, I think there cannot be environmental and climate justice without social justice, particularly with systemic racism. Like you mentioned, Sterling, with the rules and regulations and everything, that was really important. And I think we all sometimes forget about that sometimes, because we're so goal oriented, but we have to think outside of our goals sometimes, think about the bigger picture and how everything's interconnected. So I just want to thank you guys all for really not only educating us, but hopefully those out there as well who are watching this right now or later on. I think it's really important, and it's so enlightening. Okay, sorry. I get some word vomit sometimes. And so I just want to thank you guys all again for that, and that, helping us with this fight and encouraging us and inspiring us to do better and to always, make these connections between environmental, social, and racist justice. And so, yeah, thank you.
I'll just go. Okay.
Good job. Jump in
Okay.
there. I love it. And I love how your confidence has grown. We have seen it. We love it. We're all so proud of you. It makes me cry thinking about it. I'm so proud of you that you stepped up and said, I'm ready to go. Thank you for not waiting to be last. Thank you.
Okay.
So anyway, I don't want to cry, but I'm real proud of you. So go ahead, Judith.
Okay, so I'm really terrible thinking on the spot, but I'd like to thank you all for speaking in our panel discussion today, and I hope you guys could probably talk in our future panel discussions, because you guys are really good speakers and you're so passionate about your work and your views and what's happening right now. So thank you for inspiring us to work harder and fight for what should change in our world. So yeah, thank you so much.
I would just like to say that I'm so glad to be here, and that was so amazing. And after this discussion, I feel extremely inspired, especially from what Jamie said, because obviously I stand with the Black Lives Matter movement. I've been spreading awareness on social media, signing petitions, trying to get people to use their voice and speak out for what is right. And I just feel like it's so great to like connect it with what this nonprofit is about, which is about the environment, and just what Leanna said about how we can like connect everything together, how we can connect social justice and environmental justice together is really great. And yeah, so thank you all for your presentations. I really loved them all.
Oh yeah, one more thing. I just want to say, Sterling, thank you for mentioning that, you know, in the beginning you didn't really understand what was going on, but after this you're really enlightened, because it really makes us work harder to do what we do. Because even if it's just one person is more educated and more aware of the issues, it just makes all of the work worth it, and all the time we put into this and all the passion we put into it, 100% worth it. And it was really awesome, because I feel like it's sometimes hard to, you know, connect with people, like you said, during the news they might say it, but you don't really understand and comprehend it until you have these really thought-provoking discussions and like webinars. And so thank you again for that. I forgot to mention that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. So thank you so much, Leanna, for bringing that up, for sure. Sonia, would you like to say something?
Sure, thank you. So I, again, just like I said earlier, you know, very impressed with you all. And there is a huge, you know, career path in this field, you know, so I don't know if that's something you guys are considering, but environmental science and things like that is a huge industry. And you guys are already, as Sterling pointed out, and I think we all did, you guys are just showing remarkable level of competency, to be truthful, on even on an adult level. So just definitely stay encouraged. I have been encouraged by the collective consciousness of this panel, the collective consciousness of even those that didn't speak but just wanted to listen, to hear everyone's passion and thoughts and experiences brought together from a different perspective, based on just understanding. You guys did a wonderful job, Alice, Darren, Judith, and Leanna, as far as drawing that baseline of what injustice for environmental and climate looks like in our neighborhoods, which I'm, you know, fortunate to understand those issues, being with the NAACP's Environmental and Climate Justice Program and Committee. But understanding the racial and social aspect of it, from an art perspective, I mean, as an artist, I mean, they have an incredible opportunity oftentimes to bring these issues to light in a more palpable perspective that people can actually digest a lot of these painful experiences in a way that through other lenses do not. So such as even the information that Sterling was sharing, but even within his field, you know, from the arts. And Jamie, I appreciate it, as well as your passion, you know, of bringing up a lot of our recognizable figures. But I do feel like this is because I'm very strong on voting, I'm very strong and engaged politically. And I really believe that public policy matters. Although at the end of the day, when it comes down to where we're at today, from a racial perspective, it is a heart change, right? I mean, because public policy can help to reinforce what the heart won't do. So I really feel like this, where we're at, where the passion and the outcry that we're seeing globally in London and Australia and, you know, Asia Pacific and all over the world, it's about a heart change and a heart check. So because I've been very, very strong on public policy, but I understand that this is a heart issue. And I will say this, and it may be very edgy, but this issue also here in America, this is not the Black community's issue. We're unfortunately suffering behind it, but it's the white American that they have to make the change. You know what I'm saying? So this is not, I mean, unfortunately, we're suffering, and our communities have suffered from it, but this is something that white America have to make a change. Thank you again for being a guest.
Thank you so much for that. Yusuf, did you have some closing remarks for us?
Yes, two quick things. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the issues that go on here in San Diego area. We are energized by what happened to George Floyd, but don't forget, in this neck restraint issue, we've been fighting the neck restraint here in San Diego since 2017. We have Robert Branch, who was choked out on San Diego highways, and he survived, thank God. But we also have Eric Smith, who was choked out in middle school. He survived too as well, but he was used not the same knee restraint, but the carotid restraint, which is also shouldn't be used on people at all. We have Mr. Valenzuela, who did lose his life in Orange County on the highways from being choked out by law enforcement. His aunt is with us in the Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego. You can find us on Facebook. So not only with the chokehold, I just wanted to make sure that that's clear, that we're fighting the chokehold going on everywhere. And don't forget your local San Diego area, but also in San Diego, we have loss of life. Aaliyah Jenkins in La Jolla. We have Earl McNeil in National City. We have Alfred Longo in El Cajon. We have Jonathan Cornell in Vista, Sergio Wick in Vista, all of them unarmed, all of them people of color, and they all died at the hands of law enforcement. So we have to make sure that while we're raising our fists and we're marching and we're staying vigilant for the nation, we're standing vigilant for San Diego here in our local backyard, because we don't want to appear hypocritical or only sensationalized into the struggle. Secondly, I would like to say I was inspired to make some clarifications with the systemic racism that people try to sidestep, as Sterling said earlier. They try to sidestep and say that it doesn't exist because it's not legal to be racist in law enforcement. It's not legal to be racist in the Constitution. But legality has no part in the definition of systemic. Systemic and legality has no connection. So the systemic is something reoccurring, that is standardized. So in that way, you can say the train system is systemic. You can say that our plane system is systemic. You can say that sports is systemic because it's standardized, reoccurring in our environment. So this systemic racism in law enforcement exists, and the systemic racism in healthcare, in housing, in education does exist. So if they try to sidestep you again or any time with the legalities of systemic racism, legality is not a part of the definition. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. That's so important. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Thank you so much, and thank you for your work on with the Racial Justice Coalition and all of the. I mean, goodness, thank you so much for all of your work that's gone on here and all of your presentations to multiple groups. And I know that's full time. It takes so much of your time to be doing these things. And we absolutely appreciate you being here with us. That is like so important. Jamie, did you have something that you'd like to say? Oh, you're muted. Jamie's muted. Let me figure out.
Do it on my end.
There you go. Okay, yeah. If you
Okay,
could share a little bit, and we'll have Sterling share, and then we'll close. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So basically, I want to say that I learned a lot about environmental injustice and social injustice. And the gentleman that talked about the victims of police brutality and the chokeholds, I would definitely love to go on that website, because I have friends that are starving for knowledge about who is suffering.
Connect with Yusuf. I will connect you with Yusuf.
Okay,
I'm so
good.
glad for us to make connections
Yes,
here.
we need names on a local level, so that would be helpful.
Yep,
But
absolutely.
I learned a lot, so thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Sterling,
Okay.
will you close us out? Will you give us a thought and close us out as you do so fabulously?
Well, all I can really say, and I don't know if I have the adequate knowledge to close you all who are so well who are so well schooled in where racial justice and social justice and environmental justice meet. I don't know that I have that knowledge to close us out on that note, but I will say this: at the end of the day, there's another. I keep finding myself quoting playwrights these days. Now I'm going to quote Shakespeare, right? So there's a line in a play called Coriolanus where he says, "What is the government but the people?" So at the end of the day, we are the system, right? To Yusef's point, we are the system. So it's about how we choose, and again, at this point in time, this is primarily a dialogue that white folks have to have, you know, and how they choose to interact with us in this moment as it relates to justice, right? At the end of the day, and undergirding that has to be a willingness simply to treat somebody like you want to be treated. You know, at bottom line, that unplugs a lot of the injustice that we have. That goes in and cleanses the system, you know. So it is about how we at the root level, before the corruption and the craziness that takes place that sets people on this bigot path that plug into an institution where they systemize, you know, their racism. Getting to people at that level, that's where we can undo that, and that's why I'm so encouraged by seeing you young people diving in, and not obviously just with this issue, but with where your hearts are regarding this issue. I mean, that's so impressive, and it gives me and probably all the other older people here who have gone through the Rodney King of it all, and who have gone through all the other, you just go back and name names and incidents and everything else, that this is a pivotal moment, and you guys are the ones that are going to take us there. And I'm excited and astonished.
Thanks, guys, so much. So I'll sign off, but I'll make sure to connect with all of you to make sure you have each other's contact information. And we're so excited to follow up on this. And so I talked to a friend, Taz, who ran for office in Vista. And she's a Muslim woman. She's a wonderful person. Her and her husband have done so much to bring awareness about about the Muslim community. And so very important that we have these really important conversations. So I think she'll be with us next week, and we will continue to dive into environmental justice, racial justice, social justice. This is just really important for us to have these conversations. So I know people have busy schedules and all of that good stuff. So however we connect in the future, I'm really excited about the opportunity to do that. And I welcome you to let other consultants, volunteers, youth know about us. This is where our heart is, and this is our love and our passion. And as I said, Alice and Aaron, Leanna, Judith, and so many more students and youth and our interns. I should give a shout out to all our fabulous interns, by the way. Thank you, from UCSD, Cal State San Marcos, Notre Dame. Thank you so much, and everywhere. Sorry if I didn't mention, but thank you so much for all of your help and all the important things you're doing. And thank you to CARB, California Air Resources Board, for our grant. Judith, our artist, and we have so many artists, but Judith is, our lead artist, and her no idling signs that will be in the cities of Oceanside and Vista, in those school districts. Kids art printed on a metal sign. It's $15. It brings awareness. Hey, turn off your engine. Car exhaust is toxic. It starts a conversation. It'll have our cleanearthforkids.org on the bottom of it. And so people can call us. We would love to have a better website. We're improving that. And we'll link it to NAACP. We'll link it to Racial Justice Coalition and give information. That's our goal. So we're just really excited about that. And we're excited to be on Sonia's show. And we're excited to connect with Sterling. You know, Darren's been making these videos and editing them, and she loves to do that. She's going to be at UCLA, pretty close to you. She's going to be up there at UCLA starting soon. She's doing applied math. She does our budgeting for California Air Resources Board budget and all that stuff. And she makes videos. So wow. So anyway, but I know she's really excited to show you the work that she's doing and the things that she gets involved with at UCLA. And so that's going to just be just incredible. So yeah, so excited and so proud. I should also my final shout out should be to the school districts that are participating. We want more school districts to participate, and that includes, you know, solar and trying to reduce this terrible air pollution and greenhouse gases. And let's try to get incentives for people to make it, you know, low cost and all of this. So I appreciate, you know, Sonia with Sun and doing all that. You know, it's just a great idea to just reduce the burning of fossil fuels. So we have to figure out how to do that, stop this coal and all that. So we're all in. Just let us know, you know, connect with us. Please help us, you know, reach out to other people, and we'll just do everything that we can to improve. And we definitely, you know, I can improve. There's 1,000 things I need to do. Be my coach, be my mentor. Let me know. All that. So I'm game for that. So thanks guys so much. So I'll say good night. If anybody else wants to say anything, I mean, we can all say goodbye at the same time. I mean, I don't know how you'd like to do it. Sonia's waving. Okay, guys, thank you so much. We love you. We love you so much. So, and Youth Board, you make me so proud. I feel like crying. So I love you from the bottom of my heart. You're just like my kids to me, my own people. I will love you, you know, every day for the rest of the days that I am here. So I just love you. Thank you guys so much. Anyway, I'm going to close. And so, yeah.
Thank you, Suzanne.
You guys all know me so well, right? I'm all heart.
We do.
Yeah. And thank you. Thank you again, guys. I love you guys. I'm gonna sign off
Love
now.
you too, Suzanne.
Okay. Good night. Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.